Oy Zion. So the Rebbe now was going to elaborate why is it that when there is the hisgalus of the etzem haneshama, that brings the binyan hamalchus. The Rebbe will explain that the shoydesh of binyan hamalchus, the shoydesh of malchus in its first source is connected in the same place where the source of Yidden. And when the Gilui of the Etzem Haneshama, that reveals Malchus. The reason why the Rebbe explains because the Yidden are the ones that make the Dir B'Tachtonim, uh, that's why they have the impact and bring down Malchus. The Rebbe will explain this in this Ois Zayin. Ubiyar ha'inyan, the binyan ha-malchus shenasa al yidei hamshochas ha'atzmus al yidei gilui etzem haneshama. Before we said that the etzem haneshama, when it's revealed, we said there's two parts to the shofar. There's one part in which is the sarusa dilatato, and there's the other part which is the revelation through the bittul of the people, not the avodah so much of the sarusa dilatato, of the shofar, the psuke zechronius, but through the level of bittul, that's how they bring down Asmus. In order to have Binyan Hamalchus, we need to go all the ways to the top. We need to go all the ways to the source where everything went up and everything was hidden, and we needed to be mamshich from there. So, how are you mamshich Asmus to be Binyan Hamalchus, to start from the top, is through the Gilu of Etzem of the Neshama. The Etzem of Neshama can reveal the Malchus, which is necessary to build Malchus, to be Mamshich, and that is done through the Gilu Etzem and Neshama. Bira Inyan, the Binyan HaMalchus and Nasa, to explain the idea of this Malchus is built. How is it built? Shenasa al Yidei Hamshochas HaAtzmos. It's built, it needs to start all the ways from Atzmos. So Malchus is built through Hamshochas HaAtzmos. How does Atzmos revealed shall Yidei Gilu Etzem HaNeshama? When the Yid reveals the essence of his soul through the Baitkiya Shofar, but there is that level of bittul and the gilu etzem haneshama, he's megale atzmus, which is necessary for binyan hamalchus, that there should be hamshachas atzmus. So how is that? Yesh loymar al pi hamevur bekama mekoymes, based on what's explained in many places. Be'inyan Yisrael olu b'machshava, in this idea that the Yidden went up in Hashem's thought. Uh, the Lashon over here is not just that Hashem had a thought for Yidden, but Yidden were olu b'machshava. They went up in a higher level of thought. As the Rebbe will explain, there is a thought to create all of the world, but the Yidden are a higher level of thought, and the thought for Yidden is in a higher place. Uh, that's why we say Olu b'machshava. The Rebbe will explain in machshava there are different levels. There is ordinarily when we say machshava, it's not the person who is thinking themselves. A person has a machshava, he has a thought. That thought is lower than the person, but there is a thought which is called machshava atzmis. That's the essence, the machshava in the essence, which means that machshava is tied to the atzmis, to the essence of the thinker. So it's in this case when we say that the Yidden are olu b'machshava, they are in a higher connected level to Hashem, because this machshava is an olu b'machshava, which is connected to Hashem, versus the normal world machshava for the world is a lower level of machshava. Let's look inside. So it's explained in the idea of Yisrael olu b'machshava. The machshava zu hi machshava atzmis. This is a machshava which is called a machshava atzmis. The machshava bechlal. Why do we say olu b'machshava? What is this machshava atzmis? Generally, machshava hi mechutz lehachoshev. Thought is outside of the one who is thinking. So you have the thinker, and the thinker has a thought. The thought is outside of the thinker. As for example, the Rebbe says in the brackets, Adam hachoshev eze dover, the person who is thinking about something, the hamachshava bahadover, thinking in that matter, he lemato meha'odam atzmai, that thought of that matter is not the person, that's lower than the person himself. Because it is lower, he kimoy chutz mimenu, that's like outside of him. Thought, to think about something, is to say like it's a thought is outside of the person. But by the Yidden we say olu b'machshava. V'amachshava the Yisrael hichad im achoshev atzmai. The thought of Yidden is really one, that thought with the thinker itself. So in this case, the thought of Yidden is really one with Hashem. It's not a thought which is outside, which is lower, but this is a thought which is actually connected to Hashem with the choshev, the thinker himself, and that means Yisrael olu b'machshava. This also explains that we say that when the Eibishter consulted to create the world, he consulted the souls of tzaddikim. And this means tzaddikim, meaning all Yidden are tzaddikim, basically, as it says in the Mishnah, called Yisrael yesh v'amech kulam tzaddikim. So the Eibishter created and considered creating the thought to create the world was the nishmaseyim shel tzaddikim, was this tzaddikim. So because we're saying that there's actually two thoughts, there is this thoughts for world, and there is the thought for neshamas Yisrael on a higher level. So in this case, when the Eibishter consults the neshamas Yisrael, which means those who come from the machshava atzmis, he consults them about the machshava, which is sort of chutz mimenu, about the world. Not only does Hashem consult the nishmasayim shel tzaddikim, whether to create a world, Hashem consults the neshamas of tzaddikim, whether there should be a machshava shechutz mimenu, a machshava to create the world. That's why we're saying there's two levels of machshava. So the higher level of machshava, which thought about the Yid, considers should he have a machshava shechutz mimenu to consider the world. Shahahamlocha de bimin nimlach, this consideration, consultation. With whom did he consult? That the Eibishter consults with whom is loy rak al bria sa'olos, wasn't only consulting should he create the world, because this is not this consulting the Bnei Yisrael or Nishma, the Neshamas Yisrael, is the higher level of machshava. So therefore, the consultation is not just to create the world. Im livre olam eisa loy livre. Should he create the world? Should he not create the world? Elogam al hamachshava lihishavus olamas. He was considering whether there should be also about a thought to create the world. Im tia hamachshava lihishavus olamas olam. Shall there be a thought to create the world or not? So from this you understand that it can't be that the Yidden are part of that same machshava, because the Yidden are on a higher level of machshava. The bezemuvan shebenishmas nimlach shenishmas Yisrael shenishamas Yisrael shebohem nimlach im tia machshava debrius olam, that neshamas Yisrael whom he consulted whether there should be a thought of brius olam, that must be on a higher level of thought, because he's considered not the same level. It's a higher level than this machshava. That is what he explains, that this was the machshava atzmis. This is the Yisrael olu b'machshava, and that's why he's consulting them whether he should have that machshava. The mezem muvon sheben shames Yisrael shabahem nimlach im tia hamachshava debriyas ha'olamais, that Neshamas Yisrael, with whom he consulted, whether there should have a machshava, not whether he should create, but there should be a thought to create the worlds. Heim l'maylam machshava zu, they're higher than that machshava, because machshava for world is k'moy chutz mimenu, it's lower. The machshava of the Yidden, the machshava atzmis, ki ha-machshava debriyas ha'olam, because the thought for creating of the world, gam kimoishi bedarge hachinailis, even as it is on the highest of levels, he dugmas odom hachoshev ezedover, that would be compared to a person thinking about something which the thinker and the person are two separate entities. It would be machshava livrei elomis, considering to create worlds. That would means thinking about something outside shaha machshava hi chutz mimenu. In that case, the machshava is outside of him. But the Yisrael olu b'machshava atzmis, the Yidden came up and on a higher level into the machshava atzmis, and therefore they were consulted whether there should be the machshava to create the world, which is a machshava outside, like thinking of outside on a lower level of machshava than the machshava atzmis. Why did we have to consult the Bnei Yisrael, the Neshamas Yisrael? Because the Neshamas Yisrael are the ones that bring the ultimate goal of the creation of the world, because they are the ones that make the dira b'tachtonim. So mevuar sham. So it's explained over there. Da'atam al zeh shehamlocha al hamachshava debri Yisraelim hoyso im Yisrael she'olu b'machshava atzmis. Why the reason why the consultation for the thought to create worlds? Now the consulted the Bnei Yisrael whether there should be a thought for Kriyas Olam. So why was it with the Yidden she'olu b'machshava atzmis that they should make the decision av shemachshava atzmis ilamayla ma machshava debriyas olam? It would almost seem fitting that there should be a consultation with the level of briyas olam. Over here, the machshava atzmis is the l'mayla ma machshava debriyas olam. So how could the machshava atzmis decide, or why would we need them to decide Bria Sa'ilam, there should be within the level of Machshava of Bria Sa'ilam to decide that there should be a Dat Machshava. Why do we need the higher level of Machshava, of Shava Atzmis? And the Rebbe explains now that in Machshava Atzmis, there is also two levels. There's one, Machshava Atzmis, as he thinks about something outside, but it's still the Atzm. And then his Machshava Atzmis is not thinking about something else. So there could be a Machshava Atzmis, but it's a Machshava Atzmis about something outside them. Vorsham, who b'machshava atzmis shnei eifanim. Because in machshava atzmis there's two ways. Shechoyshev oides atzmai. So b'chlal he's only thinking about himself. That's the machshava atzmis. So it's not of outside at all. And the second way is v'shechoyshev b'dovar hanivdol mimenu. He's thinking about something. It's take machshava asmis, but he's thinking about something that is separated from him. It's not the machshava. He's thinking about something outside, but the machshava itself is not outside. That's why it's a machshava atzmis. Ki hu atzmai hu achoshev. It's not like a thought with he himself is thinking about it, so that's connected. That thought is himself about something which is outside. So the reason why the Yidden's Machshava Atzmis can decide about the Machshava of Abriya Sa'olam, V'zeshe Yisrael Olu B'Machshava, Hu Eifen HaBeis Sheb'Machshava Atzmis. The Yidden went up Machshava is the second way Machshava Atzmis, not connected, not about thinking about himself, it's thinking about the world. It's like the Atzmus thinking about something outside. And as the Rebbe will explain, because the Yidden fulfill this kavanah, so if it was the Machshava Atzmis itself about thinking about himself, then that could not be a hamlocha, a deciding consultation about having a machshava for the world, because it has no shaykhs. But here we're saying with the machshava asmis is the second level, which is negeya, which is connected to the outside. That's why it is able to decide for machshava of creation of the world, and also it was necessary. But the Rebbe first brings down in the bracket that that's why Yidden are actually these two aspects. Zehu bonim atem la'avaya elikechem. That's why we are considered bonim to the Eibishter, because it corresponds to the level of machshava atzmis, but still it's chutz mimenu, just like a son has from the essence of the father, but he's an entity by himself. Zo bonim atem lavai lekechem. The kivon sheshoydesh haneshames hu b'machshava ha'atzmis. Since the shoydesh of the neshama is the machshava atzmis, sha'atzmus cheshev kavayochu b'dover azulus. It's as if the Atzmus, Hashem himself, is thinking, so to speak, in something outside. So even after they came out from that thought, Atzmizik thought, in reality they were extended. So they become like sons. Shebeben dugmas shnei inyonim anal. Because a son has similar to these two aspects. Shaben hu nivdal meha'av. On one hand, the son is separate from the father, so it's chutz mimenu. Ve'afal pikein yesh boi me'atzmi yuso'av. And still he has the essence of the father, which is the two inyan is atzmus choshev about something which is chutz mimenu. So that's why there's like the idea of banim. Okay, so lochein, and therefore, hamlocha al hamachshove the olam es hoysa im Yisrael. So that's why the consultation about the thought of creating worlds was with the Yidden. Why? Ki hakavone the bria sa'olam, the kavone of creating the world, which is shatachtonim yidir lo yizborach. World is created so that the lower should be a dira for Hashem. Who does that? Nishlemes al yedei haneshamis, that is accomplished, that is completed through the souls. So now we understand the idea of neshamas, where they come from in the machshava atzmis, from as it shaykhs to azulas. So now we also understand how this is connected to the idea of malchus. That this level of machshava atzmis, as it is to azulas, is related to malchus, because malchus, by definition, is the idea of gilui, of amshocha. Shloimar, the shaykhs, the neshamas, the malchus, k'moi shehem b'mashorsham b'machshava atzmis, that the shaykhs between the neshamas and malchus, as they are in their root, it is ha'atzmus choshev kaviyochel, the davar hazulas hu dugmas hamalchus. When we say that atzmus, so to speak, is thinking about something outside, which is the neshamas Yisrael, that is like malchus, because that is what malchus, the inyan ha-malchus hazulas davke. The inyan of malchus is only when there's something outside. So the machshava atzmis, thinking about Yidden, about the neshama, is similar to the idea of malchus, which is an azulas and somebody else, ein melech le'am. So he say yesh levayir hatam al zeh. Yesh levayir hatam. So based on this, that we're saying that malchus is an azulas, and the machshavas ha'atzmis for neshamas Yisrael is like azulas. So now we can explain the reason. Shal yidei gilui etzem haneshama shal yidei tkiyas shofar, that through the revelation of the essence of the neshama, which takes place through shofar. Like we said before, shofar has two inyonim. It has the inyonim of Vesarusa de Latata, and it has the idea of bittel, which brings the revelation of the Etzem Neshama, Nasa Binyan HaMalchus, because that brings Bilya Malchus. Kal Yidei Shemizgale Shoydesh HaNeshama, Kameshi B'machshava Atzmis. Through the root of the Neshama is revealed by Tkiyas Shofar, the root of the Neshama has the revelation as it is in its root, in Machshava Atzmis. Nasa Yidei Zeh HaMalchus, Avshochas HaMalchus, Mishorsh HaMiti. So that also brings about to draw down Malchus from its true root, as we said, because Malchus is also rooted in Machshava Atzmis. So when at Tkiyas Shofar, the root of the Neshama, as it is in Machshava Atzmis, is Nizgala, that is Ma'oyer, the Malchus as well, in Machshava Atzmis, and that causes the Binyan HaMalchus. So this explains the connection of the Binyan. The Rebbe started speaking in this is the Binyan HaMalchus that takes place through the Atzmus, through the Gil Etzem HaNeshama, because that's really where the Shadish of Malchus is. as the Rebbe went through the explanation that the Yidden are not stam in the Eberste's Machshove, but they're in the Machshove Atzmis. And because of that, but it's a Machshove Atzmis Chutz Mimenu, and that's why they bring about the Machshove to uh, create the world's Bechlal, the Machshove Briyas Olam, as Nimlach Menishmoseim Shel Tzadikim. And they are in Machshava Atzmis, like outside, so that's the Binyan HaMalchus and Melech B'loi Am. So this, his oiderus, added Kiyas Shofar, when the Yid stands in the level of Bittel, and he reveals the root of his Neshama. So this brings down the root in Atzmus, in the Neshama in Atzmus, in the Machshava Atzmis, which in turn also murdered the Sheresh HaMalchus, and that brings about the Binyan HaMalchus. But the Rebbe wants to explain now in Nois Ches, it seems like this is a separate aspect. There's one aspect which you're murdered directly, which is the idea of a Sarusa de Latata. You blow the shofar, you say the Malchias, the Psuke Malchias, you add the Chrenes Shofars, you do the Avodah, and that brings down the level of Binyan HaMalchus, which is Shaykhus to that is Sarusa de Latata. It's Sarusa de Leilo that responds to the Sarusa de Latata. And then there's a whole other thing, which is the bittel of the person of the neshama, which brings a higher level of amshachas ha'atzmos, because that comes through the bittel of the neshama. That's another level, not the level of a serusa dilatata. That's the level of yivchar lonu bechira that comes from the higher level. But the Rebbe argues that it's all has to do with Kiyas Shofar. So how is this bittel of the Gilui of the Shodesh HaNeshama shaykhs to the blowing of the shofar, which it seems like an area which is not connected? The Rebbe explains, even when we say Sarusa de Letata, Sarusa de Le'ela, doesn't really mean that the Sarusa de Latata of the person has the ability to really impact it. It's no. The Rebbe brings down there is three different levels in Rotzen. The Eibishter set it up in such a way that when there will be an Sarusa de Latata, there will be a Sarusa de Leila. But the only reason how the Sarusa de Leila comes from the Sarusa de Latata, because that was in his Rotzen Hamuchlet, in the higher level of Rotzen, that should be the Rotzen. And the Rebbe will explain now. So it turns out that even the Sarusa de Latata that comes, that is Ma'ira, the Sarusa de Leila, actually comes from a higher place, which makes the decision that the Sarusa de Latata should be made a Sarusa de Leila. Let's go look at it. Yes, so first it says, V'tzorich love, and we need to understand the Lefi Hanal, based on the above. Zeh shal yidei tkiyas shofar nasa inyan ditamlichuni aleichem. Why is it that through tkiyas shofar we bring the tamlichuni, binyan amalchus? Who lefi shal yidei tkiyas shofar mizgalis sheirish haneshama, because tkiyas shofar reveals the root of the neshama, k'moishe meshureshes ba'atzmus, shalamayla minyan mitzvahs, as it's rooted in atzmus, which is higher than the inyan of mitzvahs, which means the mitzvahs itself is a sarusa dilatata that cannot bring down that higher level of the neshama or that higher level of gilui of atzmus, but it's still how everything is taking place is through the mitzvah, is through tkiyah shefer, mizeh tkiyah shefer mitzvah. But the fact that tkiyah shefer is a mitzvah, they're not saying that tkiyah shefer brings the sheirish haneshama. It's a mitzvah. Move on. Sha'inyan de tamlichuni aleichem shayir gam laha mitzvah de tkiyah shefer. that this idea of Tamlichuni Aleichem, the Binyan HaMalchus, is also connected to the mitzvah of Tkiyas Shofar. The Rebbe earlier said there's a mitzvah of Tkiyas Shofar. That's Zerusa de Latata, which is Mamshich Zerusa de Leil. There's another aspect the Rebbe said in Tkiyas Shofar, which is Tamlichuni Aleichem. Tamlichuni Aleichem, the Binyan HaMalchus, that happens through the person's bittel and his mushrash and atzmus brings down tamlichuni aleichem. But the Rebbe argues now, since the tamlichuni aleichem is connected to the mitzvah of tkiyas shofar, and the shofar is a mitzvah, so that we have to say it's not like there's a two separate things. There's a tamlichuni aleichem that takes place. Tamlichuni aleichem is bameh b'shofar through the shofar, so it has to be that also the mitzvah of Tkiyah Shofar is connected to this whole Inyan, that it brings down the level of Atzmus, the Sheresh HaNeshama, which brings down Atzmus, is also connected to the mitzvah. And as the Rebbe will explain, that the mitzvah alone is also associated, the fact that the mitzvah brings down, there is a higher level of rotzen in there. There's the mitzvah, the level of rotzen, which is doing the mitzvah, but there's something hidden. There's rotzen hanelam and the rotzen hamuchlet. And when we do the mitzvah, we're actually also connecting to the rotzen hamuchlet, because it's the rotzen hamuchlet which decides that the mitzvah should connect with it, as we'll see inside. Yuvan ze alpi mashemevayer kveid kidushas meiri chomu admur behemshach Rosh Hashanah anal. Standing what my father the Rebbe explains in this hemshach of Rosh Hashanah. Sheharotzin da no emlech gimul madreges. The rotzin that the Eibishter says that he wants to be a king. There's three levels over there in this rotzin. We say that I want to be a king. It is on three different levels. There's a Ratzon Goli, the open, the Eibishter wants to be a king. A Ratzon Nelam, the hidden Ratzon. The Rebbe will explain, a Ratzon HaMuchlet Ba'atzmusay. And the Ratzon that has been decided in his Atzmus, that is what he wants. It's not an open, it's not a hidden, but that's the deciding higher level of Ratzon. But there's really two categories. There is the one, the open and the hidden. Ratzon Hagol, the Ratzon Hagolu, Vanelam. These two that we're talking about, the revealed and the hidden, Shneim Hem Begilu Be'atzme. But within the person, they're still both revealed. They may not reveal to the outside, but by the person, they are both revealed. Side the Ratzon Hagolui and also the Ratzon Elam. The chiluk is, what's the difference between the Ratzon Hagolui and Ratzon Hanelam, is only with regards to actuality. The Ratzon Hagolui, who be Oirus Shayich Lipoil, the open Ratzon is a revealed awakening, it wants to, that it is connected to doing. So that's one, I want this connected to, in this case, I want to be a king. The Ratzon Hanelam and the hidden Ratzon, while it's still connected by the person who has Kem Shein Shaykh Lepoil, I want to be a king, but not going to be a king in actuality, but in conceptually, he wants to be a king. That's what we call Nelam. Because that's hidden and distant from actuality. So, but these are both by the person, they're revealed. It's only one is a Sodrus just to want to be by himself, that's Nelam. And one is, I want to be a king, which is Negeya to the Poil. But then you have the hidden Ratzon, v'rotzen hamuchla ba'atzmusa yunelam legamri. Then you have the rotzen, which is decided by himself, which is entirely, it's not at all, even to the person himself, it's not revealed. Hainu, shehu nelam gam legabe atzme, even for himself, he doesn't, it's just that he wants it inside him, but it's hidden, it's not open by the person. Say, for example, there's certain things that a person needs and wants, even though it doesn't come expressive, it's not revealed. As for example, a house. Every person wants a house, Mishain Lebayis and Leodom. Al-derech harotzin lebayis, similar to rotzin for a house. Doesn't mean that hidden, that there is some in the person himself, a desire for a house that he can tap in and feel that. The kol odom yesh lo mitzad etzem nafshi gam k'sheni yedei mizeh. Every person has, because of the essence of his soul, even if he doesn't know it, yesh lo rotzin lebayis, he has a desire for a home. Ki zen egei letzem mitziyusa, because that is something which touches. It's important to his existence. So that's the rotzin. That's the rotzin for a bayis. So that means that it's totally hidden because it's not even not shaykh lepoil. It's not at all even unknown to him because that's something which is engraved in his etzav hanefesh. So that's one difference. But v'oid chiluk bein rotzin hagolu the rotzin hanelam. There's another difference between the revealed level of rotzin to be a king who alidei sarusa de latata. That comes through an awakening from below. Alidei she Yisrael mekablim aleim il machusi yisbarech. Through the fact that the Yidden accept the yoke of his blessed kingdom, mevakshim, and they ask, be king over the whole world with your glory, with your honor. So we're saying that there is Rusa del Tate. So it almost seems like this only was Shaykhs after there's Yidden to daven to the Eibishter Meloich. But what happens before the Yidden daven? What happened in the creation of the world? But it's also considered that it comes through a Sarusa de Latata. So even though there was no Lepoil Mamish Tat Latata over here because there was nobody there to be Ma'ir, but it's Minei Ubei. Inyan Zeh Sheis Oiris Rotzen Hagoli Hu Alidei Sarusa de Latata. So this concept that how do you wake up, arouse this open Rotzen by Sarusa de Latata? This actually was also in Tchilas Habriya. Basically, the level of Rotzen Hagoli comes through Isarusa de Latata. Even at the time that there was no Isarusa de Latata, it also came through Isarusa de Latata. Then the arousal of that will was by bringing down the Mayim Nukvim, the Sarusa de Latata, Minei Ubei from within himself, which means that the Eibishter appreciated the fact that there will be an arousal from beloved to bring down and he did it on his own. But it came within the Eibishter also as a response from Isarusa de Latata Minei Ubei, Isarusa de Leila, Kemaimer. As we say, he consulted in the Shom saying, what does that mean? There's no tzaddikim yet. They didn't do that. I mean, what does it mean? It means that Yidei Sha'olah Lefonov Yisbarech Hatainuk Sheyisanik Bavedus HaTzaddikim. By going up before Hashem blessed, that delight that he's going to delight Vavedus HaTzadikim. It's B'nai Ubei. There's no tzadikim yet, but he knows that he's going to delight from it. V'amich kulam tzadikim, and all Yidden are tzadikim, meaning from the avoid of all Yidden. Al Yideis and this Eure Berotzen Gol Limlocha. So that brings about the Rotzen Gol Limlocha. How did the Eibishter want to become a king? Wanted the Rotzen to become a king? was through Isarusa Dilatata. And even when there was Isarusa Dilatata, that also, meaning that Ratzon Goli always comes through Isarusa Dilatata. Bedugmas Melech Basar Vadam. That's similar to a king of flesh and blood. Sha'arotzin hagolui lemelucha misoira de'achtorasam. How is the open desire, the rotzin to be a king, is the people crown him, and that brings about the rotzin to be a king. So for the Eibishter to want to be a king, it has to come through Mayim Nukvin to Isarusu Dilatata. But now we have davening, we are the Isarusa Dilatata, then it was Meneu Bey. But it all comes from Isarusa Dilatata, Isarusa Dileilo. There is a connection. But Visoider is the Rotzen Halelam. But how do you bring out the hidden Rotzen, that arousal? That doesn't come from below, but it's something which Hashem is ma'ir by himself, which means nobody elicits it. It comes from above. So Mavayir Shom, so he explains there, the Zeshal Yidei Saruso Dilatata Misairer Rotzun Golui. That would we say that as Ruso Dilatata, you are arousing the open Rotzun. It's not because of the advantage. The Sarusa Dilatata on its own has the power that it can be Ma'ir the Rotzun Goli because of its level in itself. Because a created being is no comparison to the creator. Even relative to the Eibishter's will, the open Rotzen, is still no connection of a created being. Ubefrat, especially Shegam Rotzen Agolu, who be'eris of Shalifnat Simtzum. Even the level of the open Rotzen to create is also in Lifnat Simtzum. So how could we say that a human being should be able to be Mamshechid? So how does the Sarusa Dilatato bring up the Sarusa Dilatato? But this is in the hidden Rotzen, in the Rotzen that is not revealed. The Eibishter wants that this should be mamshich. So it's not really that the Rotzen Agoli is impacted really by the Rotzen, by the Sarusa Dilatata. It's because the Eibishter wants that. So this is the Rotzen Hanelam, which is one step above the Rotzen Goli, but also Rotzen Amu, Maila Yeser, the Fishekain, Huchlet, Berotzen Amuchlet, Ba'atzmusei. This has been decided in the Rotzen Amuchlet, Ba'atzmusei, Shisarusu Dilatato to Edres Rotzen Agoli, that this arousal from below should arouse the Rotzen Agoli. So basically, when we're saying that we are Ma'oder, the Rotzen Agoli, it's really associated to the Rotzen HaMuchlat and to the Rotzen HaNelam, because it's only because in the Rotzen HaNelam, the Eibishter wants it, and it's been decided that way. That's why the Rotzen HaGolui is able to be Ma'oder, the Serus Lotat is able to be Ma'oder, the Rotzen HaGolui. So, if it all comes mitzad above, at the end of the day, what he's saying over here is how does the Isarusa de Lotata Me'ir, the Rotzen Hagol, it is really not because that the Isarusa de Lotata has the power to be Me'ir, the Rotzen Hagol, it's because that has been decided. So if that's the way it's been decided, why do we need the Rotzen? Why do we need the Sarusa de Latata? Why do we need the Rotzen Hagolu? It's decided, so let it just come down. But we need, it should be Dir B'Tachtonim. Explains, via Shloima. The fact that it was decided the rotzen hamuchla she'oiris rotzen hagoli ti alidei saruso dilatata davke, that how should the rotzen hagoli be aroused? You need the saruso dilatata. It's not just going to come on its own. The rotzen hagoli is not going to come. It needs the saruso dilatata. Ubikdei shemalchusi yisborech alo ilumois tia gam mitzad oilmois. So the Eibishter's kingdom should be from the worlds. We should bring him down. It's not like coming just from above mitzad Hashem. We should want and bring down the Eibishter's kingdom. Similar to the way it is in Malchus Dara, as it's in the kingdom over here on this world. Maybe the king could king them by force, but he doesn't want. He wants them to to crown him. The king wants. It's through the crowning him that he becomes a king. Why? Since it's brought about through the crowning of the people. Soim tosim alecha melech. You place a king on you, as the pasuk says. So we are the one that are making him a king on us, which is bitul lahamelech humitzad hametzias lahem. Their subjugation to the king is from their entity. They're subjugated, not that the king is forcing his kingdom on them. That is what's accomplished. So the Sarusa Dilatata's purpose is to accomplish that we should be the ones, the world should accept Hashem, not Hashem should rule over them. So Baal Pizeh, Yuvon HaShaychus, the Tamlichuni Aleichem, Gamla Mitzvah Detkiya Shofar. So now we can understand the connection. Tamlichuni Aleichem, which we're talking about, which is Amshochas Ha'atzmus, is also connected to the mitzvah Tekiyah Shofar. Kikiyum mitzvah Tekiyah Shofar hu is sarusa dilatata shemereres es rotzen hagoli. Fulfilling the mitzvah of blowing shofar, that is the sarusa dilatata that arouses the open, the revealed level of rotzen. That's the first step. That level of bittul of the etzem and neshama of tkiyas shofar, einay isarusa the letato la'orer esrotzen hagoli. That's not the isarusa the letato to bring the rotzen hagoli. So this higher level of the etzem and neshama, it's not working. That's not your work. That's the etzem and neshama. The gilu of tkiyas shofar has to come from avodah, has to come from the person, and that's not a neserus de latata. The level of the bitl of the neshama and the oiderus of the etzem and neshama, which is mamshim de asu, cannot be considered isarusa de latata, and it's not isarusa de nagili. Ki inyan isarusa de latata, ushaboidas hatachten, because isarusa de latata is that the work of the tachten mitzias meireres amshocha, not the bittel of non-existence that the etzem and neshama has, but it's the work. It's the work of the kiyum mitzvah of tkiyas shofar, which is the isarusa de latata, and that is what is meireres amshocha. V'lochein tzorich l'shneim. That's what we need. Two things. Can't just have the etzem haneshama, and you can't only just have the isarusa de latata. L'chotzach shnei inyonim. Shesarusa de latata hameres rotzen hagoli ukima mitzvah tkiyas shofar. Isarusa de latata, which brings out the open rotzen of Hashem, is pasha fulfilling the mitzvah of tkiyas shofar. B'amshochas rotzen hamuchlot, but to bring down the Ratzon HaMuchlat, which is necessary because the Zeh Shal Yesarusa Dilatato, Misoider Harotzon Goli, because that, how does the Yesarusa Dilatato Me'oider the Ratzon Goli? Ulifi Shekach Huchlat, Zeh Shal Yesarusa Misoider Harotzon Goli, Ulifi Shekach Ratzon HaMuchlat, because that was decided. That is the subjugation of the etzem and neshama. That's the tkiyas shofar. Because if it's not for the bittul of the etzem and neshama, then which is the rotzen hamuchlot, which is nesayder, then there would be no sayders of the rotzen golui through the shofar. The rotzen golui for being a mlucha of the Eberster, we need the kima mitzvah. But how does the kima mitzvah able to be mamshav that rotzen? That is through the rotzen hamuchlat. So the Kabbalah soil is not an eserus dilatato because that's the etzem haneshama, it's hamshacha melmayla. But we need it to come mitzad tachtonim, so that's why we need avodah, we need the eserus dilatato. But how does the eserus dilatato work? Dafke through also being ma'oder through the level of bittul mitzadesem and neshama, being ma'oder the atzmos, which is mamshich the binyan hamachos.